What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well. My name is Lamont. I've been a full-time trader for 7 years now, part of the Chart Guys team for more than half of that, where I head up our futures room and our swing report. In this video, we will go over the overall market, talk about the selling that we're seeing recently, hit you with some trade zones, update you on some old prior trade zones, and that's about it. So let's get into it. All right, so starting off with SPA here, here's the trade zone that was shared. I think the first time was probably on, should have been on this day. So we were looking for a pullback into this area of demand. And if these buyers are going to remain the most confident, let me just take this away. If the buyers are going to remain the most confident, then they would have held over the weekly no change level. And so as of right now, there's a brief break under the weekly no change level. Not yet that much follow through on it. If you zoom out a little bit and just check out the volume profile, you'll see that there's a little bit of a higher volume node over here, and then not really much more volume traded until this 320 to 4.3 structure. So I think this is actually officially already popped out of our, the stop. This one obviously came into the trade zone, popped out of it, did give us opportunity to take profits. If you use this hypothetical trade zone, this is not one that I used, but it is notable to me whenever, like, if you just look back in these videos, these setups have been pretty consistent. The market has been very forgiving for bounce plays. And so recently, I would say that the character has shifted a little bit, even though, comparing these retracements, it's very comparable to this retracement right here from a percentage perspective, although we have already exceeded that slightly. This is like 6 points and change, and this is like almost 6 points. So it's a little bit different in that regard. It's also a little bit different in that, the last time that we had this kind of a retracement, it was off a really big move. The retracement off of the last weekly low was much lower, right? So the weekly low is right now is much closer. So there are slight differences to this retracement, despite the fact that the percent retracement is very similar. It's not really that much damage yet in the market. I would say that if they were to be able to get through this high volume node over here and then start finding acceptance back into this big old chunk of volume, okay, that would be problematic. So the best case scenario from here on out for the buyers is to maintain over this weekly no change level. That's where the weekly breakout occurred at 533.07. As long as they can maintain over 533.07, well, then of course these buyers are being constructive relative to the structure here. And then essentially buyers are going to be on defense and just paying attention to this little bit of daily supply here, which I guess I didn't sync globally. Just give me a moment here. Okay, so what I'm looking at then is here's the key supply, and then on the way up to that key supply, you also have this local overhead supply that was created from July 24th to August 1st. And so despite the fact that you did get this bounce today off of the point of control of this 515 to 28 structure, if these buyers cannot overcome this breakdown level, 537.45, then the sellers are going to remain absolutely confident on the daily time frame. So that's pretty much what we're looking out for. Let me just get this out of the way. That's pretty much what we're looking out for in the next week for SPY. There's a good amount of space for daily lower high under 554.87. And that's it. Even if these buyers can overcome this key overhead supply, you still have the overhead supply sitting at the all-time high, which is what made for this high over here. All right, so that is pretty much it. We still have space for a weekly higher low over 518.36. Got space for a monthly higher low over 493.86. So despite the fact that things don't look so great as of recently, in bigger picture, there's really not yet that much damage that's occurred. So we shall see what the buyers can get done or the sellers. I guess both, either way. Moving on to the Qs here. So the Qs definitely showing you some relative weakness. I think it's notable that both of these bounces, as of yet at least, have failed to even test the daily no change level. So if they cannot get back to 53745, if they cannot get back to if they cannot get back to let's see, 454.15, that would be the best case scenario for these sellers, because the buyers today had two objectives. One, get back over the daily breakdown level, and two, to fill the gap. They filled at both of these objectives. So as of right now, the buying is weak on the daily time frame. So we shall see. There's a lot more volume on the QQQ, traded a little bit lower, I believe. Just let that load here. So we're at this first little high volume node, roughly 445, and then volume picks back up around 441 and peaks around 438. So personally, I'm still waiting for daily oversold conditions to look for aggressive buys. The last time that we saw this, similar kind of retracement, you already had daily oversold over here. So because of this little 5-day or 6-day balance or whatever, cooled off the daily RSI, it's looking like we probably won't get extended into this high volume area for 38.50. So I'm just gonna let this extension be my guide. Let things get kind of beat up on the daily time frame. Ideally, all aligned. So 5, 15, hourly, daily, all beaten up. Then I'll look for the location. I always want both of these things, right? I want the extension, I want the location. So I already have a bunch of ideas of where that location might be, here or over here, and I'm just waiting for that extension now. I think there was a trade zone that was shared. This is a conservative, is pretty much exactly what I'm talking about, right? This was designed for there to be oversold conditions. So I wouldn't do it yet, right? Because I'm waiting for the daily, but this is roughly the area that I'm interested in. And, if you're recreating this at home, just move this down until like where the daily would get extended and something like that, right? And have it roughly aligned with where things would start getting extended. So something like that. Okay, so personally, I'm waiting for a setup like this. I know I shared this with y'all last week, but again, as I've been saying, I'm waiting for daily oversold. I only want to do daily oversold now because we have now broken down and we have supply overhead. When you don't have overhead supply, I'm much more inclined to play hourly oversold balances looking for daily lows, especially if they're backtesting prior highs, because then those lows are very likely going to just be higher lows and then have a higher probability of going to higher highs. But because we have daily supply overhead, I am not interested in hourly oversold balances, because even if we do mark for daily lows, because if there's not that much extension, the odds of that being the larger time frame low are diminished. So I just want to wait for these things to get really beaten up. And another added benefit of that is when things get really beaten up, when we make our counter trend trades, I should say, the initial bounces would typically see more follow through and give us more room to play with. Okay, so that is pretty much it for the Qs. The key supply overhead is the same from 724 to 81. Got to get over 454.15 next week, first thing, or rather as the first step to regain their footing. If they cannot get back over 454.15, then sellers remain in complete control. And we're looking down at this 222 to 412 structure where there's a lot more volume traded. All right. Moving on to the Dow here. All right, so the Dow has entered our trade zone as well. This one I'm more okay with playing hourly oversold balances, although I don't think it actually got extended on the hourly today. It did actually. So I like this. So this is a fine setup still for the hourly oversold balances, because as I was saying before, there's not really overhead supply. You're still kind of balancing within the local supply. If you had a clear breakdown with supply overhead, then I would like that less. So I still think this is a very reasonable trade zone. You probably don't want to be adding to this unless you get hourly extended again. And you just want to be waiting for these locations where there was more value established in the past. That's like roughly 391, roughly 389. Okay, again, extension into location. These two things are key. Once you have the extension, then you're looking for the location, or vice versa. If you have a really good idea of where your location, where you want to play, a lot of volume traded there, you still want to see that extension into it first. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Space for a daily lower high to be set under 412.01. And the daily no change level should actually be here now. We just broke down to this lower low. So these buyers have to find acceptance next week over 398.08 in order to negate the change of this most recent breakdown. And I would say for the most confidence, what they want to get done is just get back over 401, which is this local high over here. And well, obviously this price action was trying to affirm higher highs relative to this guy. And so far, they've not done such a good job. That being said, holding over backtest of this area is a pretty good reference to see whether or not they're going to come back into all of this. So that's why this trade zone, is covering a decent amount of where this volume picks back up within here, because as long as they don't find acceptance into here, then the buyers should try to make their way back over here and then try for something like that. Just battling a sneeze right now. Okay, so anyway, that's pretty much it. For the Dow, IWM, so for IWM here, it's testing the key spot, right? So this is where I'm most interested in looking for potential plays, because, well, like I said, like I was talking about last week and throughout the midweek, because I did a couple of those market updates, the higher high, if we saw higher high that didn't see follow through, then we should look for a test of these lows, right? Because the structure that's currently trying to be resolved right now is this big fella. We have this little fella within this big fella that they need to contend with as well. And this structure over here is what made for all these lows within the much larger fella and made for these highs within this balance, made for these highs over here as well. So like I said, I would have been surprised if they just cut right through all of this 2021 supply. That's a lot of supply. And so because we did not cut through that supply, okay, well, what should happen then? We should try to see if there's still demand coming out of this area. And this is a pretty good reference for that. I'm still sticking with that as my reference. I made a play for this today on the rut. It was just a play off of the open. We live streamed it. So if you are interested in, seeing full-time traders do the job, I guess, day in and day out, give our community a shot. If you're interested in getting regular trade ideas sent to you, give the swing report a shot. Links are in the description below. The swing report picks are doing pretty well right now. Like, even though the market's in a downturn, we're in RTX buys, so that's doing pretty well. Oops, we are in RTY buys. RTX buys. So that's doing pretty well. Buys from down here. We have a CAH buy. That's doing pretty well, although it's not really doing that well. It is if you use the trade zone to a T, but I didn't trade it as well as I had laid it out. We're also in PSA. We just got an ad on PSA. So here's our original trade idea, and I sent out alerts for an ad. I guess I could have showed you guys. I didn't expect to just start talking about it, but there's some stuff for ads over here, and that is alerts for ads. So so if you want like trade ideas sent to you every single week with live updates and whatnot, give it a shot. Give this swing report a shot, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Sorry for that tangent, I guess. So anyway, back to the RTY situation here. So I like it here, but there's not really a lot of daily extensions. So personally, I am being kind of patient. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to walk you guys through the live trade that we did. So the live trade that we did was just this guy, right? So I just bought this move on the 1 minute time frame. I just bought this move back over this new high, threw my stop under the low, chopped it up over here, and then walked the stop up for half of it, stopped it out, stopped up the rest. And that was my attempt on the day for looking for like a lower time frame play to like really hone in. I want to just rotate my proceeds into IWM. That's been my strategy so far, as I've talked about in prior videos. So I tried to get that done today on the live stream. Didn't work out, but we still made out with like a few points. Like I forget, like 6 or 7 points. No, more than that. It was like 13 points or so. So anyway, if you're interested in trading along with us, give the community a shot. I think we're doing free trials. They might be closed right now. Just check our website out, and it'll have a little message if there are free trials going. So anyway, back to business here. All right, so moving on to the IWM then. So for the IWM, I still am interested in this zone primarily. But I would like to see some more extension. I'm open to making plays off of this area as long as we have hourly extension. So whatever comes on Monday, I'm still going to be looking for like failures to close this gap, for example, or failures to find acceptance back under this point of control at 207.61, lower lows that are lacking follow through, things like that. Because it's not always going to be a super clean setup, right? Like we got gifted a really clean setup over here. But if you were looking for the sell, which we did set up these sells over here, right? Like if you were looking for a sell, sometimes they're messy sells, right? Like this one, we had to plan for a potential higher high that like follow through, happened to work out really well. And we planned for that over here, and that wasn't necessary here. So, it's not always going to be honky-dory like that. Whoops. It's not always going to be honky-dory like this one, right? Sometimes it's going to be a little bit messier like that with higher highs that like follow through, or in this case, lower lows that like follow through. So I'm just keeping an eye on this area. All right. And as long as you don't find acceptance back into this guy, under this 2021 range, then we should expect more balance like this. All right. Okay, so moving on to the dollar here. So the dollar, really no change to the dollar in a long time. We're still just looking at this guy as key demand, this guy as key supply. You're probably getting sick of hearing about this, so I'll keep it short and sweet. On the way down to where this key demand is, are these areas of local demand that are built on the way up. And so now we're just looking to see, can this demand hold? Can this demand hold? And down under this low, this should be pretty easy work for sellers. If we do happen to find some consolidation down here, consolidate like this, and then get a break under this low and are unable to come back down to this demand zone, that's going to let us know that sellers are weak, because again, this should be relatively easy work for them. And if this easy work becomes hard for them, what does that tell you about these sellers? It means they're not so strong right now. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Space for a daily lower high to be set under 104.560, and now this daily no change level can move over here, as long as this is actually notable, you know, that you're seeing weakness in the market and in the dollar. So I guess the flight to safety has been, I think, our next guy, gold. We don't cover gold? Oh, I see. I thought we covered gold in these videos, but I think the flight to safety was probably gold and maybe bonds. Not really in gold. I should have money come out of gold as well. Bonds, certainly. All right, well, anyway, so let's move on to the VIX here. So the VIX spiked to I think to 30, no, close to 30 today, for the first time in a long time. So it hasn't been this high since 2023, back in Q1 of 2023. So a notable shift in the tone. This is kind of goes in line with what I was saying. Like if things have been going swimmingly for a while, this is something that probably all of you, you know, anybody who's been trading for a while, or at least swing trading for a while, you probably know what I'm talking about. There's like a period of time when the market's just kind of doing its thing, going more or less up. If you pick durable stocks, most of your trade setups are working. You're just doing your basic setup over and over again. I think the first time that a lot of positions get stopped out at the same time, you know that some kind of, there's like a shift in the air has occurred, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. The VIX is definitely affirming that. And as long as we're holding over this 1544 level, then we're seeing an elevated VIX compared to that October from 2023 low. So this is notable. Again, I'm still just going to continue watching 1544. As long as we're holding over 1544, then, you know, things are not as they were since the October low. Moving on to NVDA. So NVDA, daily lower low here. So this was actually a break into this gap that failed to fill much of it at all. It barely filled any gap. It's, let's see, 101.37. So it only broke by like 15 cents or so. It's not a lot of break. And as of right now, that's the best case scenario. If these buyers can continue to prevent this gap fill, like I think they didn't fill this gap is yet to be filled, and that gap is yet to be filled. Basically, whenever the change that comes from a gap remains unfilled, that just lets you know that these buyers are strong, right? Because wherever there was a gap, right, then there was very low volume. It's like a poor market structure. The sellers should be trying to repair all these poor market structure areas, and they're, so far, if they don't, then obviously they're not that strong. So as of right now, this retracement is still okay from a structural perspective, particularly on the weekly time frame. The last time you had a bit of weekly balance was way back here. So as long as you're holding over the breakout point 97.40, this move has not yet been negated, despite the fact that you do, obviously is notable to have a weekly lower high and a lower low. Whether or not these buyers are going to defend again, it's hard to say. And this retracement is different from this retracement, despite there being a lower high and a lower low. Actually, there's actually no lower low here, but that's another notable difference. But you can see how this move was much larger than this move, right? So this move was 96%, and then this move was 85% or so, right? So slightly lower, and the retracement is already more relative to this last move. So this last move's retracement was not even a 382, and then this one is probably already pushing 50%. Right? Yeah, it just touched 50%. So this is a notable difference in the retracement this time. That being said, I still continue to maintain the most reasonable area to be looking for trades is right down here. The volume picks back up significantly at 94.5-ish, and then again at 90.88. So if you get hourly daily oversold into this area, that's where I would be most interested, and I will definitely be taking action in this asset as an add to a position that I already have. And you probably would get daily oversold right around there. So I'm very interested in this. It's a very reasonable location. That's pretty much it. Moving on to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is not, there's nothing happening. You know, like it's just continues to consolidate here. That being said, right, as long as you're holding over this 2021 structure, then obviously that's the best case scenario for these buyers, affirming this structure as demand. The key level for it to see whether or not that structure is being affirmed as demand is the point of control at 61003.36. Currently being tested right now. You can see how meaningful it was over here, how meaningful it was over here. And so that's the idea. We're continuing to monitor this 61003.36 structure. If you do see lower lows under here, then it's back to eyeing the value area low, which is what held price over here, which is what rejected price over here, held price over here, here, and there. That's pretty much it. If you do happen to find acceptance under 61003.36, then the objective for these sellers should be to get all the way back to 53,000. Okay, they're trying to negate this breakout. All of this consolidation is trying to negate this breakout, and until they do so, then I would say this consolidation is still healthy. It's going to be less healthy once you're under 61003.36. It'll be starting to be unhealthy once you get back under 59. 472.78. And then if you get under 53K, well, then this consolidation is now negating the change of this last breakout. It becomes a much more meaningful retracement. Okay, so that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Space for a daily lower high. Anything under 70,000 even on Coinbase is going to be good for a daily lower high. Okay, and the daily no change level now becomes this guy. All right, as long as they can't get back into this overhead supply, then the buyers create no change. Ethereum. So as I was saying last week, or I think midweek, this is still the most reasonable place, right? This is where it would make sense for these buyers to defend, but the context has now shifted, right? Like when we were looking at this trade zone over here, it was set up on this day, on this June 30th, or shared on June 30th. That was because we were pretty much falling from all the way up here. Now we're falling from just over here, right? It's pretty much a step down from this key supply that we're playing from the first time. So I don't like this zone as much anymore. It obviously already came to the trade zone and got to your target. So if you're just managing a runner, you probably already stopped out the runner after this lower low. By no later than under this low should you stop out of this idea, any remaining position I should say, from this idea. I know a bunch of folks in our community got that, so kudos to you guys. And again, if you're interested, just pop on in. But I mean, these are shared here, so you don't even need to for that. But anyway, space for a daily lower high, anything under 3396.61 is going to be good for that daily lower high. And at this point, I'm still just watching this same structure, right? Like I want to, as long as these buyers are holding over this guy, we should expect price action like this. It's do or do time, like so. It's very similar to Bitcoin. All of this consolidation so far is trying to negate the breakout from over this high, right, from 2717.89. So they're getting close to finishing negating that breakout, and if they do, obviously that would be a bit of a red flag for Ethereum. Moving on to GME. So GME, now remember, all of this consolidation so far, right, is trying to determine whether or not this gap is going to be accepted. And so far, the gap is not being accepted anymore, right? Or rather, it's almost being negated, because here is this big old gap. Here is a battle for it. Here is them trying to hold this structure that was made in the gap as support, which would then affirm this gap up. And now we are slowly rotating back down to 20.20. So what happens at 20.20 is going to be super, super important. I do have an alert set over here for, I think, because I think it would be daily oversold if it were to move a little bit lower. I don't hate it. I still am interested in it, but I'm far less interested in it because now the overall market environment has changed. When everything is ripping higher and these, dumpster diving, looking for like some oversold balance plays or whatever, names that are really beat up, is much more appealing. But I'm sorry, I keep looking out because the sky is freaking gorgeous right now after a rain. But because we're no longer in that market environment, right, I'm much less inclined to take these, higher risk trades. So I'm still interested in it. Ideally, this would align with like an overall market bounce. So again, the overall market is kind of flirting with daily oversold conditions here, right? So if we move just a wee bit lower here, then, I would say, and so this gets daily oversold and GME gets daily oversold, then I would be more interested in playing this, essentially playing the overall market bounce, but using GME as the tool. Kind of like playing a leverage ETF or futures, but you trading off of the index chart, something that Dan does quite a bit. Maybe not exactly in this way, but that's kind of how it will do it. It's like, for example, if QQQ and SPY are dumping, and then something like Apple is even more extended than QQQ, or actually, I think he does this more with altcoins. But that's the idea, right? When like the even higher beta asset is getting beaten up in conjunction with the overall market, then you can make that overall market bounce play with the higher beta name instead. Okay, so that is pretty much it for GME. I just wanted to see a little bit lower and then come into this area of demand, and then I'll be interested. CCJ, I think this also cracked our stop. No, that's the old one. Nope. Yes, so cracked our stop, but personally, I'm not going to be too surprised if we don't see follow through beyond this point of control at 38.87 here, because well, I don't need either. Because this is this major point of control from this guy back here, right? This is all the supply sitting at the prior all-time high. Told you it was problematic over here. Told you it was problematic over here. It was problematic over... Oh, actually, it wasn't. Problematic over here, supportive over here, supportive over here, and now we're back to testing this key structure. So I wouldn't be surprised if the sellers are going to go, have an earnest go at trying to come back down to the value area low of this structure at 33.25. But things are already pretty beaten up. So personally, I'm kind of interested in the potential of a pass back over 38.87 play. This is kind of already more risk than I would like to do on something like that. Let me see here. It's kind of already more risk than I would like. So ideally, I'll zoom in, look for something like this, and then look for a back test play over 38.87, throw my stop under the low for that higher low play, and chop it up no later than here first. This daily change level should actually be moved now to here. If these buyers can't get back over 43.57, then they don't negate the change of this most recent breakdown. So any bounce that does not get us over that, did I just turn orange? Or it must be my eye saver thing. Any bounce that does not do that, then, you know, is weak. Okay? That's pretty much it. Moving on to 10 here. So 10 also came into our trade zone recently. I sent out a tweet letting people know, you know, hey, listen, if you took this trade, I would just chop it up before here, slightly under the target, because there's never any guarantees that we'll even get to the target, even if we get pretty close to the target as we did here. Again, same reason that I'm less interested in this, for the same reason as I am less interested in the GME. Because the context is now different, right? So this is kind of a dumpster dive play as well. You're like really far off of the highs. The solar names are not doing so hot. So I don't like this as much. I might even stop covering it because people don't seem to really care too much about it. Nobody really mentioned it. There were like a little bit of activity, but you know, so we shall see. It's the same deal, right? Like if the overall market is strong and ripping, then okay, let's do these balance plays because this name has been balancing for so long. So here's the October 2023 low, and the market's ripped like 40% or something like that since then. And what TAN has done has actually lost some gains, right? So, you know, personally, I'm not too interested in this one. It's not really, you know, the whole point of these are supposed to be hype sectors. There's not a lot of hype in here right now, so maybe I'll drop it. If you are trading this sector actively, hit me with a comment, and you know, we'll consider it just like with MSOs. I'm in the same boat with MSOs, you know, like there's not a lot of hype in this sector right now. Election is only like 3 months away. So if not now, then when, right? So maybe the VP pick, you know, breathes a little bit of air into the sector, but as of right now, I really don't love it. This trade zone that was shared way back when, I would adjust this and make sure that you have daily oversold condition. I want all of these to get extended as beaten up as possible to be even considering bottom fishing off of this demand zone. This does remain the key zone, this demand zone over here. As long as you're holding over this area of demand, well then obviously you're not going to see black dirt breakdown. But it really is the last stand, right? If you find acceptance under this 5.52, the point of control of this key structure, that's not going to be a good look. Okay, so that is pretty much it. If you made it this far and you got anything out of this video, we would very much appreciate a like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot, costs you nothing. And that is pretty much it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I hope to see y'all next time. Farewell. I'll edit that out.